Who wants to live forever? I know as an economist, this is a topic that you're very close to. Looking at the global demographics, looking at the trends across the world, the impact on markets, generally throughout the globe, people are living longer and longer.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting. We're getting to a tipping point at the moment across the globe. The global fertility rate at this point is 2.25, replacement's 2.1. So we're looking at a very low number and very close to replacement. And what has been most interesting about this is how the fertility rate has declined by much more than expected. And as a result, the United Nations keeps bringing forward the point at which they expect to see a peak global population. It's now sitting just short of 11 billion people in about 60 years or so. So that's the expectation. They've brought it in, and we're looking at a position now where about half of the countries across the globe have fertility that's below replacement, and we're probably just a few generations away from the point at which we start to see a decline in the global population, which would be unprecedented outside of wartime.
Right. And drop in population, what's the big concern there?
Well, there's several concerns. The first is that population growth has been a key component in GDP growth. And if we're going to have fewer working people over time, we need to be able to improve productivity to be able to offset the loss that we get from fewer people. There are other concerns too. We're going to land up with a much larger portion of our population over the age of 65. At the moment, 10% of the global population is over the age of 65. By 2100, that gets to 25%. There'll be a range of countries where it's 30 to even 50%. And we're going to have to land up dealing with a situation where we've got many more people that are at retirement age. They might not be able to retire, but they're going to be at retirement age.
What about from a local context? Are we seeing the same trends globally in South Africa?
Well, the fertility rate has been in decline in SA, like it has been in most parts of the globe, but it still is well above replacement. So we're not facing the same issues that we're seeing in a range of other countries. Plus, we have sizable inward migration, which means that, in effect, we're not in the same position that we're seeing for these other developed markets. We're somewhere behind them. Inevitably, it will be an issue if fertility continues to decline in the same way that it's doing elsewhere, but that's still some way away for South Africa.
All right. And as an individual, what does this all mean to me?
I think there are going to be a few knock-on consequences for people in South Africa more broadly. The first is that you're going to have these other countries that are so desperate to get young people, and they're going to want qualified people, educated people. So there's going to be massive value in getting an education for younger generations because of the demand for them outside of South Africa. But more broadly, people in South Africa and across the globe are going to come to the realization that they can't simply rely on the current expectations with regards to retirement. And retirement may be some time away, but by the time you get to retirement age might have been shifted by 5 years because there's so many people over that age. And because health has improved so much, you might be able to work until you're 90. And so I think it's very difficult for us to say with certainty what's actually going to happen when we get to retirement age. And the only thing that we can do is prepare ourselves as much as possible for the possibility that we're going to live 30 years beyond when we traditionally would retire. And as a result, we're going to need much more savings than we would have beforehand.
Look, that sounds challenging. We might have changed our topic from who wants to live forever to who wants to work forever. That's where it sounds like we're headed.
Yeah.
And when I look at SA context, I mean, one of the numbers that I can share as well is that only 6% of South Africans are able to save and retire comfortably, which is very low.
Yeah, something's going to have to give. Because given the number of people that will be surviving for such long ages post-retirement and won't be working, the state will simply be unable to provide for those people. There won't be enough young people. And this is not a South African-specific issue. This is an issue that all countries are going to be facing. It's going to be up to people to provide for themselves, and they're going to have to start to do so from a young age to be able to build up sufficient savings to enable them to live for a prolonged period when they're not working.
What about from a health aspect? I think we know obviously with age, illness, injuries, etc. How does one start to plan against that as well?
Yeah, well, we live in a golden age where life expectancy is increasing. It's to our benefit. The difficulty that we face is that we might live too long. We might run out of money before we run out of health. So From that side, medical technology continues to advance, and we are beneficiaries of that. And long may it continue on the assumption that we can live healthy lifestyles during the period that we do work. And hopefully our life expectancy continues to ratchet up.
All of this can be quite complicated. For the ordinary person that's trying to plan ahead, what should they be think of doing right now in order to start anticipating that they might actually start living longer?
Well, the first thing is you need to have a plan. You need to have an idea of how much you want at retirement to be able to ensure that you can live comfortably for potentially another 30 years or so, and look after dependents if necessary too. And you need to be able to stick to that plan, and the plan needs to be flexible. And unfortunately, I think in many cases, given the complexities, that's a very difficult thing to do. So the first step is probably seek advice. But seek advice to the extent that you can build a plan for yourself so that you can save and provide for what could be a long life.
All right. And I guess given that sense, if you're consulting with a financial advisor, as an example, you should probably look at this holistically, whether it's from a saving, retirement perspective, and also from a health perspective, and making sure you've got the right type of insurance to cover you for illness, injury, etc.
Absolutely. It needs to be a broad-based plan to cover for eventualities, which means you have to build in a margin of safety into that plan, and you need to rely on expert advice to ensure that you're using appropriate structures to do so in the most efficient manner.
Chris, thanks a lot. That is certainly very insightful. It's amazing what's happening globally, locally, and how we can start strategizing and thinking this is how we're going to plan for the future.
Well, this is a unique point in human history, where we're seeing these countries go through these demographic changes and populations starting to naturally decline. We don't know with certainty how it's going to pan out. We need to have a flexible approach in general. But we are in the fortunate position in South Africa that we're going to see other countries going through it first, and we can learn lessons from them. So I think the best advice at the moment is to take an open mind, have an open mind, and take observation of what's happening across the globe and be ready to adjust our plans. But in the interim, personally, as an individual, we probably need to prepare for what could be a long life.